We slept for hundreds of years, dreaming of a new home. But when we finally awoke, our dreams of peace were shattered.
Hey everybody, we are talking impressions on Mass Effect Andromeda. I am Matthew Fava. You can find me at Game Think Talk, your host, and I'm with
Matthew Owen. You can find me at SuperGamecast64.
All right, Matthew, you've played a lot of this game. How far are you on Andromeda?
About 35 hours in. I have seen a lot of planets. I've visited many different races and species of aliens. And boy, have I searched through this new galaxy known as Andromeda. I'm quite a decent ways in. How about you? How much of a dent have you made?
I think I'm about 4 or 5 hours. I'm on to the third planet, I believe, maybe the fourth planet. And I'm not doing too many side quests. And you're mainlining this.
Yeah, this is something, and let's just roll right into it.
Okay.
Because the writing in this game is very mixed bag. Some side quests are very well written. They're very interesting. A majority of them are just fetch quests. At a certain point, a small side quest is a literal beer run where you have to go to another planet to get beer for a party. We're talking like bottom of the barrel fetch quest stuff. So when I realized that a lot of this game is fetch questy repetitive objectives, I just started to go for the tailored narrative experience. So I've been trying to do the main quest, which is decent. But are you sticking around on the planets, or are you also trying to go just main quest?
No, I leave as soon as possible.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best way to do it, because the way this game is broken down, it's a little bit different from past Mass Effects. You have your overarching quest that goes all across the galaxy, but on your actual galaxy map, you have tons of different solar systems with different planets that you go down to, and then you try to make them habitable. Essentially, the whole story is that you are a group of colonizers, you're pioneers searching the Andromeda galaxy, trying to make a new home for human civilization. And that's essentially what you're doing. But when you land on these planets, like you said, you have to do a lot of side quests and stuff to get there. How do you feel about the writing? You had said something earlier that you feel that each cutscene or each dialogue is like three minutes longer than it should be.
Yes,
or at least double the time.
They address something interesting at the beginning, and then when it should end, they just keep talking. They restate it. It's very redundant, and it drags on. I think this game is a great example of how hard it is to make a game with a gigantic team, because it's very obvious when you look at some parts of it. When I land on a planet and I look at a vista, and I don't know what's there yet, I feel a nice sense of wonder, and I think this is pretty fun. When I play the combat, I think this is what I liked about Mass Effect 2's combat, but even faster. I like the biotics. I like the priming them for combos and the detonations. Your AI teammates run around like a bunch of jackrabbits on
They're useless.
Speed, and they're just like teleporting all over the place. They're like a deranged cat. But the combat is fine. The problem with this game is that the writing I've encountered has been amateurishly bad, like bad sci-fi series bad. And I mean, we've seen the animations and stuff. The animations aren't really all that bad. Mass Effect was never really perfect for animations to begin with, and I think they could have just dialed back. The biggest offender is when they make that ooh sound. Then the lips go out big time like a little fish. And if they would just dial that back, it probably wouldn't look horrendous. But the ooh sound and also the eyes kind of going to the left and the right.
They're always darting around.
Yeah, they look like the mannequins in Team America World Police or Thundercats.
Yeah, they do. I think here's the biggest problem with this game. Like you said, the best parts of the game are the exploration, driving around the Nomad, which is the ATV vehicle, the combat. It's very apparent, though, that, like you said, a big team, there's a lot of crossing of the streams, and a lot of the gameplay comes down to these dialogue sections. And when so much of the gameplay is confined to just picking character tree or dialogue trees, that's when you start to see the lack of quality in the facial animations. And the problem with Mass Effect Andromeda, I think, as an experience, is that the first 3 hours, or maybe the first 2 hours, depending on how quickly you run about, is nothing but talking. You get some action, but it's not anywhere near what the actual action of Mass Effect Andromeda is. It's very streamlined, and it's just a brutal first few hours that leaves a very bad taste in your mouth. It's not until you get into the game that you realize, wow, there's actually a decent game here. I think if they would have followed maybe your lead and cut back on the unnecessary amount of storytelling and the 5 different dialogue trees to literally get someone beer. I don't need to ask this person 40 different questions. I want to play the game. And I think the Mass Effect Andromeda gets a little bit too caught up on telling a bunch of stories on a bunch of different planets, and at a certain point, it's kind of the Skyrim effect, where you have 50 quests going at any given time, and you don't even know anything going on, really, except for the main quest. And I think that's its biggest issue. But the gameplay itself, yeah, it's good. Let's talk about that combat.
Right.
How are you playing it? Are you going, like, biotic tech? Are you doing guns, mostly?
I went for warp. Or no, I went for charge, and I went for some sort of like ground pound. I think it's called Nova. And I think I think the game really, because you only have, 3 powers going at once, and you can flip through the multiple profiles, I just decided to go strong on a couple of things. I like to charge in, smash the ground, use a shotgun, use a melee attack. And I think the game really, it totally lets me play that style that I want, and I find it really, really satisfying. I feel like that there's not enough combat. I find that I like the combat parts, and then just when I'm getting used to it, then it's like, oh my God, we got to talk forever. This game is too big.
It is. It's much too big.
Way too big. It's definitely quantity over quality. They need to just cut out so much of this fucking garbage, and then you could just streamline it down a little bit, and I think it would have been a much stronger experience.
When you look at games like Witcher, you look at games like Horizon, and I know you didn't really prefer Witcher 3, but at least when you look at the side quests of those, there's a story being told. There's something.
I love the writing in The Witcher.
Yeah, there's something that's giving you a reason to go. When everything is essentially a story that's leading you to a data pad in Mass Effect Andromeda, which is leading to another data pad, which just leads to a supply cache, a lot of the times I'll get a mission and then I'll go, oh, it's not even worth it. And that's the problem, is that, like you said, there's so much time in between gameplay, combat, and dialogue. And then when they really open up a planet and let you kind of go for gameplay, it's a lot of open spaces and then little repetitive side quests. It's almost like you really have to dig through all of the drudge and then pick and choose which places you're going to go. I feel like if this game maybe had 40% of its content cut, it would be better.
Yeah.
Because it would be more streamlined. It would make more sense. You wouldn't feel like, in this game, I feel like I can walk off and just do nothing for 3 hours, but not gain anything from it, which can be a good or a bad thing for a game.
See, we've both been playing Breath of the Wild, and that game is all about, what's that over there? There are no markers on the map. You go, and the most interesting part is that you don't know, and then something interesting happens, and you're almost always rewarded from it. What I find with Andromeda is they go, here's a typical quest in Andromeda. We need to turn on that thing. Open up your scanner, slowly walk around, and just follow the lines on the ground. Don't think for yourself. Now you're going to go over here, and you're not going to have any choices. There is no brain power required for anything at all. Because it's just, go here, there's only one way to do it. They've given you this open world where you can do anything, but everything you do is so unbelievably linear and brain dead.
Well, what Zelda did for us, and it's kind of funny that it happened right before Mass Effect, is Zelda taught us that everything we've known about open world games is not exactly as fun as they could be. Yeah. This whole go by the numbers, checklist kind of stuff isn't necessarily what makes gaming great. And then when you come hot off of a game like Zelda or a game like Horizon that does great things with the storytelling, and then you get Mass Effect Andromeda, which, if this would have been delivered to us last year, I think people would have liked it way more. But now that we've seen all these different, way better ways that you can handle open world gaming and how you're telling narratives within them, to get something that is so very checklist, so very by the numbers in the way that you can approach it, it feels hollow in a way that maybe is unfair for me to be judging it that way, but it's now entered into 2017. Open world gaming is something very different, and you can't just make a checklist game anymore. And I think Mass Effect Andromeda shows just that it doesn't work anymore. There's better experiences.
I think you're being a little fair to it. I think that the problem is that even if it was going to be this linear, the writing is nowhere near how good Mass Effect is. Mass Effect 1 is clunky, and I went back and played it in 2017, and although it's clunky, I really thought a lot about the stories that were being told and about the balance of the races and the politics, and it felt very weighted, and it felt very serious. This is such a missed opportunity. When I heard they were going to go to a new galaxy, I thought, great, this is going to be like Star Trek. You can do anything because
brand new place.
Yeah, except you go there and it's all the same races are along with you. There's only 2 new races really, and they're so black and white. We're the bad guys, we're the good guys, and this is a video game. You can do anything. You could have a planet where clouds are the people. Or like water, or
it's a new galaxy.
It can be anything at all. And instead, it's more like Star Trek, a bad episode of the TV show where it looks like a humanoid. They're always 6 feet tall, and they just
bipedals.
Yeah, and they all have teeth, and they all have 2 eyes and a nose, and like, really, that's all you could come up with?
I think the reason that Mass Effect, I like the comparison you draw to Mass Effect 1, because if you play Andromeda and you go, oh, it's clunky and it doesn't make sense and that's why it's bad, just go back and play Mass Effect 1, because everyone remembers Mass Effect 1 as better than it truly was. But the reason that Mass Effect 1 worked, like you said, despite the kind of clunky controls, is that the story was cool and there felt like weight and there was true politics. And Andromeda feels very much like a clone of that. When you look at a lot of the major themes of Andromeda, mysterious old races, distant technologies, all these kind of things, they've already been covered in Mass Effect. Like you said, going to a new galaxy, I felt like this is a fresh start. This is the Star Wars 2017 on, like it's different and now it's new. And like you said, you see Krogan. Here's a Krogan. Here's an Asari. Here's a Turian. And I'm like, I already know these races. I know their entire backstories. I don't need a 4th game with them in it. I would be much more happy with you using new races and really fleshing out the world. But then again, I think that maybe they already had the character art and it was easier. You know, I feel like that's probably a thing that happened because it's EA.
I was hoping for Star Trek Voyager. I wanted it to be a brand new something on every episode, but this felt like a lot of financial decisions were made. We'll use all the old art assets. It makes sense to bring forth the Krogan and the Asari and all that shit because they are on these arcs. Yeah. But another big missed opportunity is I thought this might be like Battlestar Galactica, all the politics of the arcs and the different races having different ideas about how they should settle a new galaxy. And I'm only 5 hours in, so maybe that gets a little more taken. That's better later on.
It's not. The way you settle all the galaxies or all the planets is that there are 3 different monoliths that you go to, and then they lead you to a vault, and then the vault will fix whatever the problem is on the planet.
That's every planet?
Like you said, there's the ice world. Yeah, the ice world, you find the vault, and it makes it not icy. There's the one that with radiation. You just find the vault, you make it non-radiation, and then it opens it up a little bit more. There is some cool things. And this is the problem, is that I ran into something very cool last night where you meet a new race, one of the new races, and you're very much making first contact. It felt good. Yeah. You're like, oh, we're meeting a new race, and at one point they go, hey, you're going to really need to know all of our customs and our cultures because we're completely different than how you guys are. And they give you this little quest, and it's like, hey, learn the culture and learn the trade laws and all that stuff of the new race. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. This will give me some really cool look at how first contact, a brand new culture. And then it comes down to it, and it's a joke. It's like you pick up the data pad, and it's 2 sentences, and it's like, here's our laws, page 1 out of 7,000, and then that's the joke. It's like, haha, you'll never really know how to deal with new aliens. And I'm like, that was a perfect opportunity for you to give me a really cool story, or a really cool, just a very, very cool thing, and it's a joke, and it feels like a lot of missed opportunities, and even the ones they do hit, they don't give it any of the quality they should have. A lot of this is, like you said, quantity over quality, and quantity isn't what we want anymore.
When I was playing Mass Effect 1 just a few months back, I actually dug into the lore and found it incredibly fascinating to read about the relationships between these races and how seriously they took that, and how the humans were I love that they were the low rung on the ladder, and that people, and yet the aliens were more advanced, and they saw the humans as the upstart. It kind of felt like the whole North America being such a 150-year-old creation compared to the ancient civilizations of our Earth. And also, you're going around, you're like terraforming all these worlds. What about the creatures that thrive in an icy environment? Like, nope.
Yeah, and they do a kind of weird thing to streamline that, is that you have the enemy race, which is the Ket, they're known as, and any animal you see is always like, oh, there's a dog that's a Ket dog. Like, there's never really, you don't go to a new world and see like brand new life. There's some set piece moments where it's very much like, look at that cool thing in space, like this giant creature, and that's cool. But when you're actually on a planet, you'll see new flora and stuff. Like obviously it'll look different, but you don't have that minutia of like a cool creature that isn't hostile. It's just like it's its own thing. Everything is just an alien dog you have to shoot, like, which feels weird. It feels like that's not how exploring a new galaxy would be. You don't always go there killing everything. Like, it's just because it's a video game. But at the same point, I prefer shooting over all the talking they do. So, hey, what are you going to do?
Yeah, like there definitely has to be a conflict of some kind, and you can have this Ket, but everything else in between should have been... I guess Mass Effect has always kind of pulled away from what it started off in the promise of it being more of a low-key, interesting, deep sort of sci-fi game that was more like 80s synth sci-fi than anything else. And the original fans were pissed as it went more into a cover shooter. But I think Mass Effect 2 still nailed that dynamic of, I loved the combat and I loved all the story. I think if you've played Mass Effect and you're loving, you just can't help but have this one. You've already bought it. If you've never played a Mass Effect and you're thinking about whether to pick it up, I would say go back and play Mass Effect 2 and you're probably good.
Yeah, I have the same exact sentiment. I talked to a buddy of mine who replayed the entire trilogy in anticipation. I can't talk. In excitement for Andromeda, and he said he echoed the same idea. Is that if you love Mass Effect and you like Mass Effect as a structure, you like the dialogue trees, you like the shooting and stuff, Andromeda is that. It's just a not as good version of that. If you like Mass Effect, this is still Mass Effect. Facial animations and, kind of bad writing be damned. This is still Mass Effect. The problem being that the whole idea of it is it's a whole new world. And the ideas and the expectations that come with exploring a brand new galaxy and all the possibilities, it falls so flat on that. And it becomes just another Mass Effect story. Which, if you like Mass Effect stories, you'll enjoy. Just not as much as, like you said, Mass Effect 2, or even, honestly, 3. This is definitely the weakest in the series, but if you really want that itch, do what Matt said. Just go grab Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, or even Mass Effect 1. If you want a more comparable experience, just play Mass Effect 1. It's comparable to Andromeda.
I haven't played through either. I've only played the first quarter of 1 and 3, but I would definitely put 1 over 3.
Oh, yeah, no, 1's way better than 3, for sure. But I think 1 is more what Andromeda is like, at least in the dialogue.
Sure.
How much they put into writing versus combat.
Unfortunately,
I don't know. It's a game. We'll have final impressions on a90skid.com whenever I'm done finishing this massive game. It's supposed to be like 50 or 60 hours, and I'm trying to see where the end of it is. But
I've heard mainline could be 20 hours or so, but if you want to actually do everything, it could be 80.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of content, but out of that 80 hours, maybe only 30 of it is good content, TBH. Like, I've done a lot of stuff in this game, and maybe 50% or 40% of it has been worth my time, and that's what pushed me to just do the main quest, is because I hope that I'll be able to do all this stuff after. I hope they don't leave you with a closed ending, kind of like Mass Effect 3 was like, and you're done, I hope I'll be able to go back and do some of the other stuff, but as for now, I don't see any other reason to really explore the planets because I don't feel like I'm exploring them. I feel like I'm just shooting everything on them and making them human. Yeah. That's all I feel like I'm doing.
You're a parasite spreading to another galaxy.
Essentially. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. My name's Matthew Falvey. You can find me at GameThinkTalk and at 90skid.com.
I'm Matthew Owen, and you can find me at SuperGamecast64. You can always get on iTunes and Stitcher and at 90skid.com.
If you like what you hear, share it with somebody you think might like it as well. It helps out a lot. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Later.